slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you
War is a crucible where trust is both a lifeline and a liability. On the battlefield or in the war room, loyalty to comrades and country can mean the difference between victory and defeat. But when that trust is shattered, the consequences ripple through history, altering the course of nations and leaving scars that never fully heal. Today we delve into 5 of the most infamous wartime betrayals, moments when individuals or nations turned their backs on allies, comrades, or their own people, with devastating results. From the sinking of a friendly fleet to the sacking of a holy city, these stories reveal the cost of treachery in times of war. It's the summer of 1940, and Europe is reeling from the lightning-fast advance of Nazi Germany. France, a key Allied power, is crumbling. After the evacuation at Dunkirk, the French army is battered, and by June 7th, German forces are less than 70 miles from Paris. The French government is teetering, and whispers of an armistice with Germany grow louder. For Britain, this raises a terrifying prospect. The French Navy, one of the largest and most formidable in the world, could fall into German hands. If the Axis powers gained control of those ships, it could tip the balance of the war. The French Navy's commander, Admiral François Darlan, tries to reassure the British. He swears the fleet will never be surrendered to Germany. If push comes to shove, he says, he'll order the ships scuttled, sunk by their own crews to keep them out of enemy hands. But in London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill and his war cabinet are skeptical. They've seen promises broken before. France is on the verge of signing an armistice, and Britain can't afford to take chances. The British propose a deal. France can negotiate with Germany, but only if the French fleet is first moved to British ports. French Premier Paul Reynaud balks. Moving the fleet would leave French North Africa vulnerable to German or Italian retaliation, a risk he's unwilling to take. Tensions rise as negotiations falter. Reynaud resigns, and Marshal Philippe Pétain takes over, pushing for an armistice. On June 22, 1940, France signs the agreement with Germany. The terms stipulate that the French fleet will remain in Axis-controlled ports, but one to be handed over. Darlan reiterates his promise. The ships will never fall to the Germans. Churchill, however, isn't convinced. He orders a drastic measure, Operation Catapult. The plan is to neutralize the French fleet by any means necessary. Vice Admiral Sir James Somerville is tasked with leading the operation at Mers el-Kebir, a naval base in French Algeria, where a significant portion of the French fleet is anchored. Somerville is given 4 options: convince the French to sail to British ports and continue the fight, sail to British ports for repatriation, move to French ports in the West Indies for demilitarization, or, if all else fails, sink the fleet. On July 3, 1940, Somerville arrives at Mers el-Kebir with a British task force. He presents the ultimatum to the French commander, Admiral Marcel Bruno Gensoul. Gensoul refuses all options, insisting the fleet will remain loyal to France's new government. With a heavy heart, Somerville gives the order to open fire at 5:54 p.m. For the first time since the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, British and French forces clash. Shells rain down on the anchored French ships, catching many crews by surprise. In just 15 minutes, the attack devastates the fleet. One battleship escapes, a tactical error by Somerville, but the damage is done. By July 6th, follow-up attacks leave 1,297 French sailors dead or missing and 351 wounded. The fallout is immediate. France severs diplomatic relations with Britain and retaliates with a symbolic bombing of Gibraltar. In Britain, the press calls the attack a grim necessity, and Churchill delivers a speech to Parliament, exaggerating the threat of the French fleet falling to Germany. Privately, Somerville is horrified, writing to his wife that the attack was the biggest political blunder of modern times and lamenting being chosen for such a lousy job. The betrayal at Mers el-Kebir sows distrust between Britain and France, weakening the Allied cause at a critical moment. It's a stark reminder that in war, even allies can turn on each other when fear overrides trust. In 1941, the world is engulfed in war, and the Pacific is about to become a new front. Britain, stretched thin by the fight in Europe, looks to its allies to bolster defenses in its far-flung colonies. Hong Kong, a British stronghold in Asia, is vulnerable as Japanese forces mass on the horizon. Britain asks Canada to send reinforcements, 2 battalions to shore up the garrison. What unfolds is a betrayal of trust that sends unprepared Canadian soldiers into a meat grinder. Major General Edward Grasset, a Canadian-born British officer, suggests the reinforcement plan, possibly unaware of the full strategic picture. But General Harry Crerar, Chief of the Canadian General Staff, almost certainly knows better. High-level British intelligence has warned that war with Japan is imminent, yet Crerar assures Canadian leadership that Hong Kong faces no significant military risk. His confidence sets the stage for disaster. Crerar is given a list of available battalions, categorized by readiness. Class A, fully trained, Class B, partially trained, and Class C, untrained or needing refresher training. Brigadier J.K. Lawson, who compiles the list, warns against selecting Class C units, as they're unfit for combat. But Class A units are already committed elsewhere, and Class B units are tied up in other duties. Crerar, under pressure, selects 2 Class C battalions, the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifles of Canada. His stated rationale is geographic balance, 1 unit from Western Canada, 1 from the East, and their recent experience in similar climates. In reality, these troops are woefully unprepared, lacking proper training and equipment. As one Royal Rifleman later recalls, "We were just kids." In November 1941, the battalions dubbed C-Force arrive in Hong Kong. On December 7th, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, and hours later, Japanese forces strike Hong Kong. The 6 battalions in the garrison, including the Canadians, are thrust into battle. Brigadier Lawson, who accompanies C-Force, tries to rally the troops, but they're outmatched. The Japanese, battle-hardened and well-equipped, overwhelm the defenders. The Canadians, with minimal training and outdated weapons, are overrun. Lawson himself is killed, becoming the highest-ranking Canadian officer to die in World War II. Japanese troops show no mercy, even bayoneting wounded soldiers in a hospital. By the time Hong Kong falls on December 25, 1941, 290 Canadians are dead and 493 are wounded. Many survivors endure brutal captivity in Japanese prisoner-of-war camps. The decision to send untrained troops into a hopeless fight is widely criticized as a betrayal of Canada-SE soldiers. Crerar's assurances and the selection of Class C units reflect a failure of leadership, sacrificing young men who trusted their country to protect them. The Battle of Hong Kong remains a dark chapter in Canada's military history, a stark lesson in the cost of misplaced trust. In the American Revolutionary War, few names are as infamous as Benedict Arnold. Once a celebrated hero, Arnold's betrayal of the American cause remains one of history's most dramatic acts of treachery. His story is one of brilliance, ambition, and bitter resentment, a man who felt betrayed by his country before he turned against it. Arnold's rise is meteoric. A skilled merchant and militia leader, he joins the Continental Army in 1775, quickly earning a reputation for boldness. Alongside Ethan Allen, he captures Fort Ticonderoga from the British, securing vital supplies. He then leads a daring expedition to seize control of Lake Champlain, outmaneuvering British forces. In 1775, Arnold's audacious march through the Maine wilderness to attack Quebec City fails, but his tactical skill earns him widespread admiration. Promoted to brigadier general, he seems destined for greatness, counting George Washington among his allies. But Arnold's ambition breeds enemies. Some officers resent his aggressive tactics and accuse him of arrogance. In 1777, despite his successes, Arnold is passed over for promotion to Major General, a snub that stings deeply. He tries to resign, but Washington, valuing his talent, refuses. During the Battle of Saratoga, Arnold is wounded when a musket ball shatters his leg and his horse collapses on him. Refusing amputation, he's left permanently disabled, sidelined to a desk job as military governor of Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, Arnold's life takes a darker turn. He marries Margaret Peggy Shippen, a young woman with loyalist ties, and begins living extravagantly, amassing debts. Accused of profiteering, he's investigated by Pennsylvania's authorities. Though Washington stands by him, issuing only a mild reprimand, Arnold's resentment festers. He feels unappreciated, betrayed by a country he's risked everything for. In 1779, Arnold begins secret correspondence with British Major General John André. Disillusioned, he offers to sell military secrets. When Washington offers him command of the Northern Department, Arnold declines, citing his injuries, and instead requests control of West Point, a critical American stronghold. In 1780, he sends the British detailed plans of West Point's defenses, weakens its fortifications, and plots to surrender it. He even urges the British to capture Washington during a planned visit. The scheme unravels when André is captured on September 21, 1780, carrying incriminating documents. Washington, devastated by his friend's betrayal, orders Arnold's arrest, but Arnold escapes to British lines. He becomes a brigadier general in the British Army, leading raids against his former comrades, including in Virginia, Washington's home state. Arnold's treachery shocks the fledgling United States, undermining morale and trust. Historians still debate whether America's treatment of Arnold, overlooking his contributions and humiliating him, pushed him to betray his country. Regardless, his name remains synonymous with treason. In Norway, the name Vidkun Quisling is as reviled as Benedict Arnold's is in America. Quisling's betrayal of his country during World War II made him a symbol of collaboration and treachery. His actions not only aided Nazi Germany, but also left a lasting stain on Norway's history. Quisling, a former army officer and politician, founds the National Samling Party in 1933, modeling it after Hitler's Nazi Party. Unlike most Norwegians who value inclusivity, Quisling harbors extreme anti-Semitic and nationalist views, alienating much of the public. As Hitler rises in Germany, Quisling, now Norway's Minister of Defense, grows increasingly pro-Nazi. By 1939, he's in direct contact with Nazi officials, meeting Hitler himself in December to discuss unifying Germanic nations. When Germany invades Norway on April 9, 1940, Quisling seizes his chance. Despite warnings, Norway's government is unprepared. Rejecting Germany's ultimatum, the government and royal family flee Oslo, declaring it an open city to avoid destruction. This leaves a power vacuum, which Quisling exploits. With German support, he declares himself head of a new government, announcing his coup to a stunned public. The move backfires. Quisling is deeply unpopular, and even Hitler's envoy, Josef Terboven, distrusts him. The Norwegian people resist, and Quisling's appointed ministers refuse their posts. His government collapses within days. Recognizing Quisling's value as a collaborator but not as a leader, Hitler appoints Terboven to govern Norway, relegating Quisling to a symbolic role. Quisling continues to support the Nazis, aiding their occupation and alienating his countrymen further. By 1942, even Hitler loses interest in him. After the war, Quisling faces justice. Arrested and tried for treason, he's executed in October 1945. His name becomes a byword for betrayal, a cautionary tale of a man who sold out his nation for power and ideology, only to be rejected by both his people and his allies. The sack of Constantinople in 1204 is a betrayal that resonates through the centuries, a moment when Christian crusaders turned on their own, with consequences still felt today. The Fourth Crusade, launched by Pope Innocent III, aims to reclaim Jerusalem from Muslim control. Instead, it becomes a catastrophic assault on the Byzantine Empire, a fellow Christian power driven by greed and division. For centuries, Western Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Christians have clashed over theological and political differences. By 1202, when the Fourth Crusade sets sail, tensions are high. The Crusaders, led by Venetian Doge Enrico Dandolo, rely on Venice's advanced navy. But the crusade faces a problem. Only a third of the expected Crusaders arrive, leaving them unable to pay for the Venetian fleet. Dandolo proposes a solution: attack the Christian city of Zara, under Hungarian control, to cover the costs. The Crusaders comply, sacking Zara in 1202. Pope Innocent III, outraged, excommunicates the Crusaders, though he later lifts the penalty for the French contingent. The crusade takes a darker turn when Prince Alexius Angelos, a Byzantine exile, promises wealth and troops if the Crusaders restore him to the throne in Constantinople. Some Crusaders object and abandon the mission, but others press on. In 1203, they capture Constantinople and install Alexius as emperor. When he fails to deliver on his promises, his own people turn against him, and he's assassinated. The Crusaders, still outside the city, decide to attack again. On April 12, 1204, they breach Constantinople's walls. What follows is a brutal sack. Churches are looted, civilians slaughtered, and women assaulted. The Crusaders, meant to liberate the Holy Land, instead pillage a Christian city. By May, they establish a Latin empire, replacing the Orthodox Byzantine government with Catholic rule. Pope Innocent III, initially unaware of the Crusaders' true intent, condemns the attack but accepts the outcome. The sack of Constantinople deepens the schism between Catholic and Orthodox Christians, weakening Christianity in the East and paving the way for the Byzantine Empire's eventual fall to the Ottomans in 1453. It is a betrayal rooted in greed and mistrust, a stark reminder that even shared faith can't always prevent treachery in war. These 5 betrayals, Mers el-Kebir, Hong Kong, Benedict Arnold, Vidkun Quisling, and the sack of Constantinople, illustrate the devastating impact of broken trust in wartime. Whether driven by fear, ambition, ideology, or greed, these acts of treachery reshaped battles, nations, and history itself. They remind us that in war, the enemy isn't always on the other side. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those we once called allies, comrades, or brothers in arms.